What would you do if you lived a perfect but borrowed life and had to choose between it and your real life? Warm light from an ornate chandelier filtered through the rose-tinted windows of the grand hall, casting a soft golden glow over the polished wooden floor scattered with delicate white petals. Clara stood to the side, petite and elegant in a flowing pastel dress that swayed gently with her nervous breath. Around her, laughter and chatter buzzed like summer cicadas, while the scent of roses and champagne mingled in the air. Yet Clara felt the cold sting of isolation, a bubble of silence wrapped tightly around her chest. The joyous faces around her sparkled with love and celebration, yet there was an undercurrent of subtle exclusion. At a nearby table, friends and strangers shared knowing smiles, their eyes briefly flickering to Clara before glancing away. A passing comment floated through the air, soft but unavoidable. "Still single, Clara? At your age?" The voice was light, but the implication heavy-laced with pity and veiled judgment. Clara's grip tightened on the thin fabric of her dress, fingers blanching. Heat rushed to her cheeks, and for a moment, the vibrant scene dimmed into muted shades, the laughter blurring into a distant echo. The hopes she carried, romantic dreams inspired by stories she'd devoured, felt vulnerable, fragile, and out of reach. She forced a smile as she passed the table, voice barely above a whisper, "I'm waiting for the right one." A small, derisive chuckle rippled through the gathering. "Keep waiting," came a sharp reply. "You'll be waiting forever," someone else added, the words twisting like autumn leaves caught in a cold wind. The polished mirror along the wall caught Clara's reflection, a reflection that seemed both familiar and strangely foreign. Her red curls framed a face painted with poised sadness, eyes shimmering with longing and an undercurrent of fear. The ringless fingers at her side trembled slightly, a quiet protest against feeling invisible. Nearby, a tall man with a knowing smile raised his glass, appealing for silence. To the bride and groom, he toasted, and to stories that become legends. Applause rippled through the room, but to Clara, the words carried a double meaning, a reminder that her own story felt like a faded draft she dared not finish. The camera lingered on her face, capturing the complex interplay of longing and resignation before pulling back to reveal the vast room bathed in warm light, hope and shadow entwined in the dance of celebration. As the music swelled softly, Clara took a slow step away from the crowd, her eyes briefly catching an ornate hand mirror resting on a nearby table. Its surface shimmered unnaturally, hinting at mysteries beyond its frame, an invitation and a challenge awaiting her touch. The scene faded on that reflective surface, fractured by the soft light, as Clara's quiet breath merged with the distant hum of whispered dreams and unseen possibilities. The soft hum of muted conversations drifted around Clara as she withdrew from the clustered groups of laughter and shared glances. Her footsteps were light, barely disturbing the plush carpet of the suburban venue, yet each step carried the heavy weight of whispered judgments and internal doubt. Her striking red hair caught the warm light as it spilled through the floral-draped windows, casting soft curls that seemed to frame a face caught between vulnerability and quiet rebellion. Sitting by herself at a distant corner, Clara placed her hands delicately upon her lap, the flowing fabric of her dress rustling like a whispered secret in the hushed air. The echoes of Jordan's cutting remark during the reception still hummed harsh and unforgiving in her mind, like a relentless tide pulling her deeper into a sea of self-doubt. The edges of her delicate features twisted briefly with a flicker of suppressed anger, but it was quickly overtaken by a fragile shadow of shame. Around her, the wedding celebration blossomed in joyous bursts, clinking glasses, the subtle warmth of embracing loved ones, but Clara's world contracted, colored by the cool blues and muted grays of isolation. The chilled air seemed to fold around her, a barrier keeping the revelry just beyond reach, as if she existed simultaneously within and outside the space she longed to inhabit. Her gaze fell toward her bare hand resting lightly on her knee, the absence of a ring more glaring than the richest gemstone. It was a symbol of belonging she yearned for but had never grasped, a silent measure of fulfillment and love she feared might forever elude her. The mirror-like glass of a nearby window caught the reflection of her face, eyes distant and rimmed with the weight of unspoken questions. Clara's breath hitched slightly as the soft tendrils of a memory flickered echoes of dreamy novels where love was both redemptive and disruptive, pairing identity and intimacy in delicate balance. She yearned to embody those stories, to find a love that felt as deep and sincere as the tales that lived in her heart. Yet the bitterness of the evening's torment gnawed at her resolve. A slight movement caught her eye, a golden wedding band gleaming on a well-manicured finger close by, sparking a pang of envy disguised beneath a smile too tight and fleeting. Clara's hand rose almost unconsciously, fingers brushing the air as if to trace an unseen chain binding her to a borrowed life of possibility just out of reach. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words formed. Instead, a delicate sigh breath of longing and quiet strength escaped, blending with the soft murmur of the evening around her. In the stillness, the camera shifted to briefly capture a shimmering antique mirror resting against the wall, its surface catching fragmented glimmers of the room's warm light. The glass seemed to pulse subtly alive with a secret invitation, beckoning Clara toward a path both unknown and impossible to ignore. The scene closed on Clara's face, a portrait of tender conflict, her eyes reflecting the tension between despair and the faintest spark of courage. The lingering warmth of the celebration faded behind her as she leaned into the solitude, the promise of change whispering in the shadows that danced just beyond the light. The warmth of the fading sunset seeped through the lace curtains into the quiet room where Clara found herself standing before an antique mirror, its frame ornate and gleaming faintly with the last light of day. The air was thick with the scent of wood polish and faint lavender from the vase on the dresser, but it was the mirror that held her captive, the way its surface shimmered, not with reflection alone, but with a subtle, ethereal glow, as if aware of her presence. Clara's fingers trembled as she reached out toward it, the soft fabric of her flowing dress brushing against her skin like a whisper of forgotten dreams. The mirror's surface rippled gently under her touch, and for a moment, her reflection seemed to flicker, almost another version of her cell phone, both familiar and unknown, smiling faintly where she had not. Her breath caught, heart pounding with a mingled ache of fear and longing. The room around her blurred at the edges, colors fading into soft pastels and shadows weaving through the corners like silent watchers. This mirror was no ordinary object. It was a gateway, a threshold. Fingers pressed against cool glass, Clara was transported inward, journeying through memories and desires, quiet moments when hope flickered brightest beneath layers of fear. She saw herself not as the woman dismissed and ridiculed only hours before, but as someone capable of transformation, of reclaiming the narrative yet unwritten. The wedding band glinted on her finger, heavy and alien, a symbol both borrowed and binding. Yet in the mirror's depths, she glimpsed a key shimmering and elusive, emblematic of hidden potential waiting to be unlocked. A soft chime echoed somewhere distant, as if the house itself acknowledged the turning tide. In this suspended moment, Clara understood the fragile power of self-recognition, the first spark that could ignite a new path. Her eyes fixed on the reflection, now clear and resolute, and with a slow, deliberate sway of her hand, the image shifted to meet hers fully. It was not just an echo of the past but an invitation to step forward. The room brightened imperceptibly, shadows retreating into their places, as the mirror's glass shimmered once more, steady and unwavering. Clara stepped back, her breath steady, heart lighter than it had been in months. The frame held not just her reflection but a promise. The journey to find herself had begun. The camera pulled away slowly from the glowing mirror, catching the soft flutter of curtains in the evening breeze and the gentle click of a key turning in the distancia, sound both literal and symbolic, unlocking a door to the unknown. The screen held on the mirror's stillness as the last glimmers of dusk faded to a star-studded night, weaving a delicate thread between vulnerability and the emerging courage that would carry Clara into the uncharted chapters ahead. A soft morning light spilled through the gauzy curtains of an unfamiliar bedroom, casting a warm glow on the muted pastel walls. Clara blinked slowly, the rim of a golden wedding ring catching the sunburst as her fingers instinctively brushed against it. Unease prickled beneath her skin, tangled with a faint thrill of curiosity. She sat up in the plush bed, surrounded by pristine linens and the subtle scent of lavender, so unlike her cramped, cluttered apartment. Outside, birds called to greeting a day that promised both light and shadow. The city's distant noises softened into the background melody of morning. Through the open window, she caught the flutter of leaves dancing playfully on the breeze, a reminder that daybreak often whispers possibilities. Yet beneath the surface of calm lay turbulence. Clara pressed her palm to her chest, heart pounding, the steady rhythm at odds with the storm of questions swirling beneath her gaze. The wedding ring was no illusion, it adorned her finger, heavy and real. This borrowed life, shrouded in mystery, was both sanctuary and cage. The room held clues. Photographs of a smiling man she did not know hung above a chest of drawers. A silver key rested atop a stack of mail, its presence heralding locked secrets yet to be unveiled. Her eyes traced the mirror's reflection from across the room, the surface shimmering faintly, beckoning her inward, a portal to understanding or entrapment. Clara rose, the soft fabric of her dress swirling around her ankles as she moved with delicate caution. She reached for the key, fingers trembling slightly, an embodiment of latent potential and the unknown roads ahead. "What does this open?" she murmured, voice barely audible yet steady with the fragile strain of courage. Venturing beyond the bedroom, she wandered through sun-dappled hallways adorned with tasteful decor that narrated a life of comfort and subtle restraint. Each whisper of fabric, each creak of polished floors, amplified the surreal sensation of living between worlds, the life she'd lived and this one abruptly thrust upon her. Hours folded into an uneasy rhythm of tentative exploration. She found herself in a study lined with books whose titles blurred familiarity and distortion, mysteries and memoirs entangled. Her trembling fingers brushed a small locket resting beside a faded photograph. Symbols etched delicately on its frame resonated deeply, as if echoing the promptings of the mirror's silent gaze. Her reflection spiraled with brief moments of clarity and doubt. "Am I this person?" she echoed softly, the question both challenge and acceptance. The day's light waned, shadows pooling in corners like secrets gathering strength. The air shifted. A sudden draft stirred the papers on the desk, flipping a single page to reveal a scribbled note, a cryptic message, a thread leading deeper into the labyrinth of borrowed lives and hidden truths. Her eyes widened, breath-catching as the room exhaled a subtle breath of revelation. Clara's heart quickened, the past and present converging in an instant of fragile power. She clutched the letter close, whispering, "This is just the beginning." The camera pulled back slowly, framing her small figure poised amidst the intricate maze of this borrowed existence. Outside, twilight crept over the cityscape, the skyline awash in glowing embers of settling day. The window's reflection flickered once more, the mirror's shimmering surface hinting at the delicate boundary between who she was and who she must become. The scene faded on the soft illumination of the key resting, waiting, a silent summons to unlock not just doors, but destiny itself. Twilight draped the cityscape in a velvet cloak, soft golden streetlights flickering to life as shadows stretched long and uncertain. Clara wandered unsteadily through the elegant yet unfamiliar corridors of the borrowed home, her fingers grazing the heavy, polished banister as if seeking anchor in the tumultuous sea beneath her. The wedding ring shimmered coldly, a constant reminder of the life she had unexpectedly stepped into, both sanctuary and prison. Her heart thudded erratically, each beat a tremor of anticipation and dread. The porcelain mask of the perfect wife she was meant to be pressed heavily against her face, suffocating and unwelcome. Memories of whispered rumors, hushed confrontations, and the real owner's enigmatic existence surfaced unbidden, casting a chill deeper than the autumn evening air. She paused before the towering mirror in the grand hallway, its silvered glass fractured subtly not with cracks, but with ripples that danced tantalizingly beneath the surface. Her reflection wavered, an unsettled mirage blurring the lines between self and borrowed identity. In that mirrored gaze, Clara glimpsed the fractures she must now navigate. Her breath caught as footsteps echoed softly behind her. She turned sharply, meeting the cool stare of a stranger whose presence seemed woven into the haunted fabric of the house itself. "You don't belong here." The voice was low, edged with accusation and pain. Clara swallowed, the weight of that truth crashing upon her. No matter her kindness or effort, the shadows of the other woman's past clung relentlessly, threatening to unravel her facade. Fractured loyalties and concealed betrayals rippled through her days. Calls unanswered, whispered secrets between once trusted friends, a slow tightening of isolation. The borrowed life revealed itself not as a gift but a labyrinth, where every turn promised revelation and ruin in equal measure. In the quiet moments before sleep, Clara clutched the cold key she'd found hidden beneath a drawer in the bedside tablia, symbol of potential escape or deeper confinement. Its metal was smooth, yet unyielding, much like the reality she faced. She whispered into the dim room, "Whose life am I really living?" The flickering candlelight cast her elongated shadow against the wall, a silhouette fractured and multiplied a visual echo of her internal fracture. Pushing herself up the next morning, Clara forced a smile in the mirror, her eyes shadowed but gleaming with fragile determination. Each day was a battle, a dance between embracing this stolen existence and preserving the flickering embers of her true self. Her phone buzzed suddenly, a message from an unknown number, chilling in its brevity. "They're watching. Trust no one." A cold shiver traced her spine. Outside the window, the city thrummed, soft, lithe, ordinary world that no longer felt quite so ordinary. She gripped the window sill, fingers tapping a restless rhythm, eyes fixed on the blurred horizon where the sun fought distance and darkness. Clara's world had shifted irrevocably, balanced on the knife's edge between shadow and light, truth and deception forever changed, yet on the cusp of awakening. The frame held on the distorted reflection in the mirror as the light dimmed further, revealing the faintest silhouette behind Clara, her own self, watching, waiting, a promise and a warning intertwined. The scene faded in the silent crescendo of hidden truths, the heartbeat of uncertainty pulsing beneath the fragile calm. The late autumn rain drummed softly against the expansive windows of the grand estate, a rhythmic pulse that mirrored the storm raging within Clara's heart. She sat alone in the sprawling study, surrounded by shelves groaning under the weight of forgotten volumes and musty family records. The golden light of a single table lamp spilled a warm pool amid the shadows, yet it did little to soften the chill wrapping her like a shroud. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the thick envelope she had discovered tucked away in the back of a leather-bound ledger. The aged paper crackled, a fragile testament to secrets kept and promises broken. Within lay documents hinting at dark ties and scandalous omissions, implicating the real-life owner of the borrowed existence Clara now inhabited. The wedding ring on her finger caught the lamplight, gleaming ominously. It was no longer a symbol of elegance or unity, but of entrapment, an unyielding chain linking her to this life's mounting burdens. Clara's eyes darted to the ornate mirror opposite her, its surface clouded with forgotten memories. The glass seemed to ripple as if alive, reflecting not just her image but fragments of both her own essence and that of the woman whose life she had assumed. The tension between two overlapping selves pressed heavily upon her, fraying the edges of her identity. Her breath hitched as whispered voices, the echoes of past conversations, betrayals, and concealed truths crawled through the silence. The shadows in the corners deepened, threatening to engulf her fragile grasp on reality. "You can't run from this," a voice seemed to murmur from the darkness, a ghost of regret embodied. Tears welled in her eyes as the weight of duplicitous loyalty and escalating deception pressed inward. The facade she maintained eroded under relentless pressure, her borrowed world cracking. In a sudden, shattering moment, Clara realized that the impending family scandal wasn't just external, it seeped into the very fabric of her borrowed self's existence and now threatened to consume her. Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. "How much of this life is really mine?" The camera held close as a tear traced a lonely path down her cheek, the mirror before her reflecting two faces merging hers and the other, indistinct yet inseparable in the dim glow. The room seemed to contract and expand with painful breaths, the walls enclosing a collapsing world. The scene faded out on the shimmering wedding ring, its glow dimming yet still cold and unyielding, a symbol of the life Clara must now reckon with, one that would no longer be borrowed but faced head-on. As the credits of Shadow and Light played, the story poised on the cusp of a transformation, the haunting silence awaiting the storm to come. Rain fell steadily outside Clara's apartment, each drop a cold percussion on the windowpane, blending with the muffled hum of the city into a relentless, unyielding rhythm. Inside, the warm amber light cast long shadows across the room's minimal decor, the soft folds of her flowing dress pooling around her as she sat curled on the edge of the bed, the wedding ring on her finger a silent, unnatural weight. Her eyes were hollowed with exhaustion, the kind that sleeps can only barely soothe, and her thoughts spiraled in spirals, past and present colliding in a chaotic dance. The borrowed life she'd tentatively embraced now felt like a cage woven of silk and steel, delicate yet impossibly confining. The darkened mirror across the room reflected not only her image but the fractured self underneath, the woman she had been and the stranger she was becoming. The gleam of the ring was a cold beacon, reminder of a love that belonged to another, and a life she could neither claim nor relinquish. Her breath caught in a strangled whisper. "Who am I now?" Outside, the wind howled, rattling loose window shutters, while shadows seemed to writhe and pulse in the corners between fading light. Clara's fingers shook as she reached for the edge of the bedside table, grasping a small, vintage Keats metal, cool and unyielding in her palm, a key that promised escape yet also the unlocking of secrets that frightened her. The isolation was suffocating. Every phone call unanswered, every doorway unopened, every stranger's glance laden with unspoken questions fed the growing void. As if the city itself had turned its back. The silence of her apartment was profound, broken only by the relentless patter of rain and the low, distant echo of a door closing somewhere beyond. A voice drifted faintly, her husband's, calling her name from the depths beyond understanding, layered with confusion and expectation. The sound was at once a tether and a trap, more ghost than reality. Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. Her face flickered with the complex torment of love intertwined with alienation. The mirror reflected back a gaze that was both terrified and defiant. The candle on the nightstand sputtered, its flame dancing amidst the creeping shadows, casting fractured light like shards of her unraveling world. She reached out, but the mirror's surface rippled subtly, as if alive, inviting and warning at once. Her voice, barely audible, was a fragile thread. "I don't know how much longer I can hold this for them, for myself." There was no answer save the growing storm outside and the cold, unyielding dawn yet to come. The frame tightened on her clenched fists, resting atop the ringed fingerpail and trembling before slowly pulling back to show her figure isolated against the endless, rain-streaked windows. The room, once a sanctuary, had transformed into a prison of shifting realities. The final image held Clara alone with the shadows, the mirror, and the silent question hanging, heavy and unresolved, in the air. The scene faded into the relentless murmuring of rain, the prelude to a descent into darkness where identity, hope, and love all teetered on the edge of fraying. Night had fallen completely, draping the city in a cloak of cold shadows that seeped through Clara's apartment windows. The usual urban symphony of distant sirens and muffled footsteps was muted, swallowed by the oppressive silence that filled the room. Clara sat slumped on the floor, the soft folds of her dress strewn like forgotten petals around her. The single light source, a small bedside lamp, cast a dim, wavering glow that barely pierced the darkness. It fractured across the polished surface of the mirror opposite her, throwing dizzying shards of image that fractured her reflection, shattered pieces of a self she no longer recognized. Her chest heaved with shallow breaths, the rhythm jagged and untamed as waves crashing against fragile shores. The wedding ring on her finger glinted dully, no longer a symbol of love or belonging but a cold brand marking her as a stranger in a borrowed life. Each glint of metal caught the flickering light, welcoming her into a reality she couldn't claim. Outside, a chill wind whispered through the streets, stirring fallen leaves to dance like restless spirits. The faint scent of rain mingled with the stale perfume she'd worn earlier, a scent now clinging to memories that mocked her vulnerability. Her fingertips traced the edge of the cracked mirror, the cool glass pressing unevenly against her palm. The fractures in the glass seemed to swallow the light, fracturing the fragments of her identity like the shards of her own fractured hope. She stared deeply into the broken reflection, unable to discern where her true self ended and the borrowed life began. A whisper hovered at the edge of her hearing, soft, almost a breath, indistinct yet demanding attention. She strained to catch the words, but only silence responded, heavy and suffocating. Her voice broke, barely audible, a trembling fragment lost to the shadows. "Who am I? Really?" The room echoed with the absence of answers, amplifying her solitude while the distant clock in the hallway hit 12, its chime hollow, marking not a beginning, but a finality. The camera drew back slowly, capturing her isolated figure shrinking into the vast expanse of the room. The walls, once comforting with warmth and light, now swallowed the edges of her presence, fading to shadows that reached and enveloped. Tears spilled silently, tracing cold streams down her cheeks, mixing quietly with the dust motes that danced like fading starbursts in the fleeting lamplight. Her breath slowed until it ceased to rise and fall, mirroring the stillness settling like a shroud. The mirror stood as both witness and cage, reflecting a soul at the precipice, fractured, fading, on the verge of surrender. The scene faded naturally to black, leaving an aching pause filled only by the whispered echo of a life suspended, waiting to be reclaimed or lost forever. The apartment lay engulfed in a heavy silence, broken only by the distant city sounds muffled against the cold glass windows. Clara's form was curled in a shadowed corner, the faint glow from the street lamps casting fragmented light through the slats of the blinds, painting stripes across her tear-streaked face. The wedding ring, a constant and alien presence, caught the light briefly, its gilded surface a stark reminder of the borrowed life she struggled to inhabit. Her breath was shallow, each inhale a fragile thread tethered tenuously to hope, each exhale a surrender to the utter weight pressing against her chest. Time lost its meaning. Seconds unfurled into endlessness as she wrestled with the unrelenting waves of anguish and uncertainty. In the solitude, the antique mirror that once held mystery and allure now loomed as a silent witness to her unraveling. She edged toward its cool surface, fingers tracing the delicate frame, a symbol of her internal fracture and the untold potential locked within. Her reflection shimmered, distorting gently as if breathing, and for a fleeting instant, Clara caught a glimmer, a flicker of the woman she truly was beneath the borrowed identity. It was fragile, almost imperceptible, like the faintest flame defying the encroaching darkness. A whispered melody, soft, ethereal, seemed to rise with the evening breeze, slipping through the cracked window. It stirred something deep within, a memory of laughter once bright, of promises not yet broken, and the warmth of a love that could be reclaimed. Clara lifted her face, eyes wide, searching the mirror for that spark, that silent cipher that would unlock the path forward. "Where are you?" she breathed, voice trembling but resolute. The wedding ring caught the light anew, glowing softly, almost as though it held its own secret, the key to the destiny she was beginning to reclaim. In that stillness, the room seemed to exhale with a subtle shift in the air, a tiny crack in the walls of despair. The mirror no longer reflected just sadness, it glowed with possibility. Clara rose slowly, her movements deliberate despite the heavy weight of doubt and fear. She looked toward the door threshold between fractured past and uncertain future. The camera lingered on her face, caught between shadow and light, before pulling back to capture the delicate outline of a key resting on the table nearby. The faintest whisper brushed the silent room, "Begin." The scene faded with the soft illumination of the key, a symbol both literal and metaphorical. In its subtle gleam lay the fragile promise of renewal, a silent invitation to step beyond the borrowed life and into the true story yet to be written. The first light of dawn seeped softly through the ancient windows of the abandoned lighthouse, casting a gentle amber glow over the dust motes that danced like silent witnesses. Clara stood at the threshold, a fragile silhouette against the glassy ocean stretching unseen beyond. Her hand trembled as she grasped the old, rusted key engraved with delicate symbols, remnants of a life she had briefly borrowed, now trembling with new purpose. The air was thick with the scent of salt, old wood, and unspoken hope, each breath a step toward reconciliation with herself. Outside, the wind stirred the dry grasses, whispering promises, hinting at the possibility of renewal. She had been lost in the shadows of doubt and despair, broken and unsure of her path, but something within flickered, faint yet persistent, a flicker of awakening. Slowly, she pushed open the heavy door, the creak echoing in the encroaching silence. The interior was cloaked in darkness, a cathedral of memories she had yet to truly confront. A dim light glimmered faintly, casting fragmented patterns over the walls, revealing the outlines of old maps, tattered journals, and familiar symbols, signposts of her hidden history. Her fingertips traced the carved wood of the nearby altar, the symbols for strength and renewal pressed into the granichos of her own silent resilience. Her breath hitched as she moved to the crumbling wall mirror, its surface mottled with age but shimmering with a new, fragile promise. Her reflection wavered for a moment, a ghost of her former self, blurred and fractured but alive. A whisper of wind, almost like a sigh, slipped through the cracks and brushed her cheek. The dawn's muted light touched her hair, a tapestry of reds and auburns shimmering with renewed vitality. Her eyes, once dulled with fear, now flickered with tentative hope, as if awakening from a long slumber. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed the mirror's surface, sensing the ripples of change at her fingertips. In that moment, a fleeting vision flickered, an image of the love she yearned for, shimmering like a mirage, fragile yet undeniable. A faint smile played upon her lips, a whisper of acknowledgement that within her remained dormant strength waiting to bloom. Her reflection held a silent rebirth, a testament to the internal awakening unfolding beneath the surface. The camera slowly panned away, framing her as a small, determined figure standing amidst the shadows, hope flickering like a soft flame into the dawn of her new journey. The lighthouse's beam in the distance stirred, a guardian of truth, shining softly into the vast awakening sea, promising that even the faintest shimmer holds the power to ignite an unstoppable light. The dawn seeped into the small town, casting a golden hue over the quiet streets and the aged lighthouse standing proud yet weathered against the new day. Clara moved purposefully through her modest home, each step steady and deliberate. The oppressive weight of doubt had begun to lift, replaced by a quiet resolve that beckoned her toward justice, not just for herself but for the fractured life she had temporarily inhabited. On the worn wooden table, the resolute key gleamed faintly in the morning light. Its intricate symbols shimmered, a tangible symbol of hope and unlocking potential. Silently, she traced its outline with tentative fingers, feeling the promise of revelation stirring beneath her skin. Pen in hand, Clara wrote her plan, ethical, brave, sincere. She pictured herself confronting those who had betrayed her and the false life she was forced to navigate. Her voice was a whisper, but in it echoed the strength of her heart. I will face this with clarity and truth. Stepping outside, the air was crisp and invigorating, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness of her despair. The locals, unaware of her internal battle, went about their day, their lives untouched yet subtly connected. Clara's gaze lingered on the lighthouse, its beacon casting a forgiving glow, an ancient sentinel of hope amid the chaos. She walked toward the harbor, where sunlit waters reflected the relentless sky, a mirror for her own turbulent soul. Her hand clasped the key tightly, a physical promise to herself to unlock the chains of betrayal and reclaim her voice. Arriving at the grand estate where her borrowed life had taken root, Clara's presence felt grounded yet luminous. She stepped into the dimly lit study, where shadows laced the walls like memories of past deceptions. With unwavering resolve, she placed the key at the heart of the room, the symbolism of unlocking buried truths radiating outward. Her voice was calm but fierce, a declaration rippling through the silence. No more hiding. It's time to reveal what's real. Lighting candles, she prepared herself to confront the darkness, her reflection flickering in the cracked mirror, distorted yet burning with the ember of her true self. Every thought was a step toward reclaiming the integrity fractured within. As she turned the key in the hidden lock of her borrowed life, a subtle shimmer spread through the room, a moment of grace, the start of her awakening, a symbolic dawn breaking through the storm. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing her silhouette amidst the glow, a testament to resilience and hope. Her journey was far from over, but an unbreakable resolve now coursed through her veins, an awakening that no shadow could extinguish. The first light of dawn spilled across the horizon, igniting the sky in hues of amber and rose. Clara stood at the edge of the old pier, overlooking the endless ocean, a figure transformed by ordeal yet unbreakably resolute. Her eyes, once clouded with doubt, now shimmered with a clarity that burned brighter than the morning sun. In her hand, she clutched the small, engraved Keith symbol of her liberation. Its cool metal pressed against her palm, anchoring her to the truth she had uncovered and her newfound purpose. The wedding ring, once a symbol of borrowed life, was now just a memory, a relic with no hold on her spirit. The lighthouse, silent sentinel of both warning and hope, cast a protective glow over her silhouette. Its beam cut through the morning mist, illuminating her path from darkness into light. Every step she took along the weathered planks was deliberate, each movement a testament to her resilience. Her breath was steady, and her posture upright, no longer fragile, but poised and unwavering. She turned her face to the rising sun, a silent vow forming in her mind. The battle was won, but the journey was merely beginning. She was ready to step into her true self, unburdened by past shadows and false pretenses. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing Clara's silhouette against the golden sea, a symbol of strength and renewal, poised at the threshold of her final confrontation. The wind whispered softly, an ancient hymn of hope and rebirth, as the world around her burst into radiant new life. The scene lingered on her profile, a masterpiece of quiet determination, before dissolving into the dawn's warm embrace. Dawn unfurled softly across the quiet city, casting a gentle, golden glow that seeped through the open window of Clara's modest apartment. The morning air was filled with a delicate mix of hope and gratitude, a contrast to the storm of chaos and despair that once threatened to consume her. Clara stood before her mirror, her reflection a mirror of her journey, worn yet resilient, vulnerable yet unbreakable. Her tousled auburn hair caught the first light, framing her face in a tender glow. There was no wedding ring adorning her finger, only the bare skin where it once sat, a testament to the journey she had traveled, the false life she had shed, and the real life she was reclaiming. The mirror reflected not just her image but her renewed spirit, an essence strengthened by truth and love. Silent, she traced her fingertips over her cheek, feeling a warmth that had long eluded her, a quiet, steady pulse of self-acceptance. Her eyes shimmered with a quiet knowing, the faintest smile touching her lips, unforced and genuine. The room around her radiated serenity, filled with symbols of her awakening, the open book of her life, raw and unedited, the small key on the windowsill, a reminder of unlocked potential, the mirror, fractured yet luminous, symbolizing the beauty in brokenness. A gentle gust of wind stirred the sheer curtains, casting shadows of dancing light across the walls. Outside, the city hummed, soft lithe rhythm of life slowly returning to her, every moment a delicate thread woven into her new narrative. Clara exhaled slowly, releasing the last remnants of doubt and fear. Slowly, she approached her window, craning her neck to see the horizon, vast, open, filled with infinite possibilities. Her hand reached out, gently touching the glass, as if communicating silent gratitude to her reflection, her true self. Outside, a single bird soared into the sky, its wings catching the sunlight in a graceful arc. She watched it disappear into the blue, a symbol of freedom, of flight, of new beginnings. In that quiet moment, Clara's heart swelled with a tenderness that transcended words, knowing that she was finally home, unburdened and whole. Her gaze drifted across the scene, lingering on the mirror one last time, soft tears glistening in her eyes, not of sorrow but of peaceful understanding. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing her silhouette framed by the emerging dawn, radiating calmness and strength. The scene lingered, emphasizing the serenity of her inner world, a visual symphony of hope, resilience, and authentic self-love, before gently fading into the first light of a new beginning. Beneath the soft glow of the evening, Clara stood before her mirror, her reflection radiating with newfound serenity. The room was quiet, the air filled with a gentle stillness, as if the world outside had paused in reverence of her quiet transformation. Her bare finger, where once a wedding ring symbolized a borrowed life, now rested free, the skin warm and unburdened. The mirror shimmered, casting a warm, golden hue that seemed to dissolve the shadows of regret and doubt. She reached out and traced her fingertips along her cheek, the warmth of her own touch grounding her, reminding her of the journey she had silently traveled. In that moment, Clara's eyes closed briefly, a deep inhale drawing in the essence of her own truth, a symphony of self-love, acceptance, and authenticity. Her heart, once fractured by the burdens of false love and borrowed identities, now beat with a steady cadence of peace and purpose. The memories of sleepless nights dwelling on what she lacked, the suffocating fear of never being enough, gently faded into the background, replaced by a luminous understanding that her worth had always been present, waiting to be acknowledged. A single tear welled, not of sorrow, but of release. It traced a fragile path down her face, catching the light and shimmering like a star, an echo of her inner awakening. She opened her eyes, gazing into her reflection with a soft, genuine smile, radiating a quiet strength that filled the space around her. The camera slowly pulled back, revealing her standing tall and unshaken, a symbol of resilience and transformation. Outside, the world continued effortlessly, unaware of the silent revolution within. The scene lingered on her face, a masterpiece of serenity, vulnerability, and authentic self-awareness before fading into the dimming glow of twilight, symbolizing the dawn of her true life. The last rays of sunset dissolved into a gentle twilight, casting a soft, amber glow across Clara's quiet room. Her reflection moved softly in the mirror, a mirror no longer fractured by doubt or shadow, but clear and luminous with newfound serenity. Her bare finger, where the wedding ring had once symbolized a borrowed life, now rested unadorned, yet radiated warmth beneath the dim, tender light. She paused, breathing slowly, savoring the silence that had finally settled over her world, a silence filled with the quiet hum of inner harmony. Her hands, delicate and steady, brushed lightly against the mirror's cool surface, feeling the pulse of her own strength, unmasked and genuine. The room was a sanctuary, her sanctuary, a place where her essence was whole. In her eyes, traces of past pain had faded, replaced by an unshakable peace, a calm that stretched beyond the room and into the cosmos. Every shadow that had once obscured her worth had dissolved into the night, leaving only the gentle glow of her authentic self, unhidden and pure. The symbolic mirror reflected not just her image but her journey, an odyssey of loss, discovery, and renewal. The flickering candle beside her flicked softly, its glow magnifying the quiet dignity of the moment, a visual echo of the silent light she now carried within. Words were unnecessary. Her smile, a soft, unforced affirmation of self-love, held the weight of her entire voyage. She was finally home, no longer a fragment of borrowed dreams but the architect of her own destiny. The camera slowly lingered on her silhouette, captured in gentle repose, against the backdrop of the slowly darkening room. The mirror's reflection shimmered, shimmering with serenity and a promise, an eternal reminder that even in the silence, love and truth shine with unwavering brilliance. The scene dissolved into the hushed darkness, a poetic silence, embracing the peace she had fought so fiercely to achieve. Would you keep a promise made in another's life? Share your thoughts below.